Hello, everyone. Just my colleague Izzy is just letting people all come into the room. As soon as we're there, we'll make a quick start. Thanks very much for making some time today. Really appreciate it. I can see that there's still a number of people just coming through. Just while we get going, I will say a hello from me for those of you I haven't met or spoken to before. My name's Joe Fortune. I'm the General Secretary of the Co-operative Party. Really grateful for your time today. And this is, some of you may know that we've been running a range of Co-op Party Zoom calls and an online activity locally and regionally and nationally through the period of COVID and indeed before. What the theory is in behind today's session and indeed 3 or 4 sessions after this is a bit about us. I mean, we've spoken an awful lot about a vast array of cooperative issues, a vast array of public policy issues. We've met and spoken with and interrogated in some cases some of our most frontline cooperators, frontline cooperative politicians as well. This is an opportunity for ourselves to get together to talk about what the Co-op Party is, what we're trying to achieve. We've tried to ensure that it's an opportunity for new members to come together as well. So we try and do this one quite quickly. For those who are still joining, I'm simply introducing from my point of view as General Secretary of the party, what we're trying to achieve here with the summer school. I will talk a very small amount about where we've come from, where we find ourselves today. And for me, it will be about the questions that you have for yourself to ask me anything that you find interesting or have been wondering about the Cooperative Party for a period of time, and I'll do my best to answer any questions given. What I would say right at the start is that what we do, we record these sessions. Why we record them is so that we're able to show colleagues, friends, members this content if they're not able to join. What that means for yourselves is if you don't wish to appear in the video, as it were, the recording of this, please do feel free to turn off your screen yourself. In terms of questions and the rest, what you can do is 3 things. You can raise your hand and we'll be able to see that, raise the virtual hand everyone's so used to now, or go into the chat function and ask questions. Feel free to ask questions in the chat function, or indeed you can, if it's easier, you can email events@party.coop, and my colleague Izzy, who's also on the call, our events officer, will be able to pick them up and send them through to me. So as I say, I'm going to keep it quite short, quite punchy, and then we'll get through to the questions and discussion. But this is the first session all about the Co-op Party, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve. So the first question is a bit about where we've come from. There will be colleagues potentially on the call, but certainly within the staff team, within the movement, who will be only too familiar with where the Cooperative Party have come from. But the way I describe it is we're the political party of the UK Cooperative movement.
So mute me.
We've been in existence now for just over 100 years. Through that 100 years, there's been different incarnations of the Cooperative Party through the way in which the cooperative movement itself has operated. But the party is done its century. It has been a voice for the UK cooperative movement and for cooperation through that period of time. And in some ways, it's a bit like the Labour Party in that the cooperative societies were the founding reason, the founding fathers and sisters for the Cooperative Party. Originally, there were hundreds of cooperative societies who were members of the Cooperative Party. Now we have that hybrid system where there are cooperative societies who are members of the party, allied with individual members as well. So from those hundreds of cooperative societies, we now have 10 cooperative societies who are members of ours, allied with the nearly 12,000 Cooperative Party individual members as well. Through the period, we've always been represented in Westminster, different numbers of cooperative MPs, but have had representation there and in local government as well. Clearly, since the devolution, the Cooperative Party have become represented in Scotland and Wales in the devolved settings as well, in the devolved nations and parliaments there. Ultimately, we've been here for a defender and a promoter of the cooperative movement in all its different guises. If you look at the things that we can talk about, it goes right across the political and the economic spectrum, whether you start at banks and the financial system and you work your way towards sport clubs and other aspects. There's an expression of cooperation in virtually all public policy, certainly virtually all domestic public policy. We're here to promote cooperativism, and importantly, and where it started at its very inception, is the defender of the UK cooperative movement as well. You know, the movement itself over the period has felt sometimes let down by public policy makers, sometimes let down by decision makers, and that was the genesis of the absolute start, which is where ultimately the movement felt ignored through crucial periods within the First World War, and it said to itself, we can't have this, we must have our own representation, in the same way as the trade unions felt as well. So that's sort of where we've come from, and there's fantastic historic texts and books which will go into this in elaborate detail, but that's the absolute essence of it. And where do we find ourselves today? Today, we remain the tribune of the, if you like, of the UK cooperative movement. We remain its political voice. We remain its one of its key promoters and one of its key defenders. We've got 12,000 individual members of the party spread right across the country, which are organised into local and regional party structures in the same way as other political parties. We've got 60,000 online cooperative party supporters as well. People who opt into our campaigns, people who wish to hear about the great work that we're doing, allied with yourself as members, and keep in touch with the party as well. And we've got those cooperative societies as members of ours as well, which I mentioned. We're represented right across the political spectrum and at all levels of government, up from parish councils through local government with nearly 1,000 Labour and cooperative councillors now, metro mayors right across the country, in Scotland and Wales, strong parliamentary groups there with Labour and cooperative ministers sitting and taking decisions in Wales, and being in the shadow team within Scotland as well. Where we find ourselves in Westminster is a parliamentary group of 26 within the Commons, a full group of just shy of 43 when you include our Lords and Peers. But sometimes people think that that's the only way of becoming representing the cooperative party is through that route of membership, but it's not. In that 2/3 of the Parliamentary Labour Party are actually members of the cooperative party, but don't represent us in that way. You may like to come back to that within the discussion about how we make those decisions, how you yourselves make the decisions over representation in the discussion. Why we feel that this is really important to give time and space for new members to learn more about the party is because nearly a third of the party have only been a member of the party for nearly sort of four and a half years. It's a really fresh, dynamic membership of the party at the minute, and I think that's one of the reasons why I find it really important that we have this opportunity to get together to discuss issues which you're coming to fresh. You've got a different perspective on as well. I think this is a really good time for it. What are we trying to achieve? And I'll sort of finish on what we're trying to achieve right now. We've got a strategic plan, which I won't labour too much. I think you'll all thank me for not labouring through our strategic plan, but you can certainly find it online if you're so inclined. But ultimately, we're trying to grow. We're trying to increase our size of membership within the cooperative movement itself. We're trying to increase our influence within the cooperative movement, but within the Labour movement. We say that we wish to be a leading organisation in both. We can talk about what that looks like and whether we're achieving it within the discussion as well. We're looking to ensure that the co-op movement feels that it has a very strong political voice. We're looking to ensure that we have a vibrant party as well. We're looking to ensure that our branches are working well, our regional structures are fit for purpose, and that we're exerting the influence that we think that we should over British politics, primarily through our relationship with our sister party, the Labour Party as well. I can talk to you about that relationship between the Labour Party and Co-operative Party, should that be of interest. But ultimately, that is a relationship which is guided by an electoral agreement. So why we're not an affiliate, national affiliate, like some of the other parts of the Labour family are, is that we have an electoral agreement. We're a standalone political party with its own regulated by the Electoral Commission in the same way as any other political party. So we have this agreement which was first signed in Cheltenham many years ago. I think we're coming up to our 95th year of that agreement. I think 1927 is when it's first agreed between the two parties to be this sister party. That's updated periodically. I can talk about what that agreement looks like as well, if that would be interesting. The other aspect of the way in which that agreement means that we do affiliate at lots of levels of the Labour Party. So you may be familiar that we have CLP delegates or places on local campaign forums, or LGCs as they will be, or we have places on Scottish Labour Party executives or Welsh executives as well. So we affiliate at lots of levels within the Labour Party, but just not at that national level, where that electoral agreement is the guiding principle. So that's why we have the relationship with the Labour Party which we have today. It's almost unique. There's not many with those sorts of places. So that's one of our primary ways of making of influence in British politics, as I say. But yeah, we're trying to play a leading role. We're trying to play a leading role within the co-operative movement. We're seeking to grow. We're seeking to make sure yourselves as members feel that there is great value within their membership, whether that's our campaigns. One of the most important aspects of what we've been doing over the last couple of years, if you look at 2 or 3, and I'll leave it here in terms of 2 or 3 of the campaigns that we're running at the minute. You can see maybe the reasons why. One is on food justice. You know, the co-operative movement has a legacy and a track record, unlike many other features of UK society within food, within the provision of food, rather growing or indeed retailing. But many of the community responses within the food justice piece are on co-operative lines as well. We feel that is a horrid issue to have to campaign on, but we think it's an incredibly a pertinent and necessary area for our work. Not only is that highlighting what the co-operative movement does itself, but it's also about seeking to make sure that the members and activists and indeed our elected representatives have all the tools necessary to take action themselves to lessen the situation which our country finds itself now, and indeed where we're off to in the short and medium term in terms of food justice. Other things like violence against shop workers. Again, some of the most basic aspects of being safe at work, putting food on the table, some of the most basic aspects of societies where we're campaigning. We have nearly 300,000 retail workers within the co-operative movement, spread obviously right across the country. We find it of increased huge importance that we're campaigning in that area, supporting our colleagues, supporting co-operators right across the country who face unimaginable and disgraceful violence and abuse at work. One of our big campaigns currently as well. There's others. Supporting fair trade, a hugely historic mission of the co-operative movement, support of fair trade. Currently, we're pointing out to Nestle, who have taken the most recent decision to walk away from the fair trade mark for their Kit Kats. We're seeking and campaigning to change their minds, to make sure that it's clear to retailers and producers, but also the public more generally, the importance of fair trade and the benefits it brings around the world to farmers, producer farmers right across the world. So there's 3 aspects of our campaign and work, very different, but united by that need to promote the co-operative movement. So look, I'm going to sort of call a halt to that introduction to the party, because you can talk about the introduction to the party for a very long time. But I am going to ask colleagues on the call if there is something which is irking you, or something which you wish to ask of the Co-op Party, or you wish to see change in the Co-op Party as well. Now is a great opportunity to do so. I've seen that there's some questions coming in through the chat function, but do, as I say, feel free to raise your hand as well, in order to make sure that you have the opportunity to put your question to us. But the first one I've seen come through in the chat has been on proportional representation, and what the Co-op Party's view of proportional representation is. Now, ultimately, what I'd say within any aspect like this is that it's down to our members. Ultimately, our members take the decisions over what our policies are and are shaped by. This is often happens at our annual conference. So we haven't had something on PR at annual conference for a good while. Now, that's what's nice about cooperatives, and indeed the Co-op Party, and to a degree slightly different to other parts of the wider Labour movement, is that if aspects of a need for support for PR comes forward from the membership, if it is debated and accepted by our members, that's where our party policy is. And that's what I will say to other parts of the campaign groups and others who are hugely supportive of PR, or indeed other voting systems, is it needs to come from our members. It needs to come from the very people who are involved in the party. It's not something that we take centrally. There is a NEC policy subcommittee, if you like, but ultimately policy decisions like that are taken by members. So if it's something that you feel hugely passionate about, or you feel is lacking within our policy platform, it's down to yourselves to make that known, to make that clear, to work through party structures, whether that be your local branch structure or party council as well, and into change the party's position. So it's not something like what do I as General Secretary believe. It's actually in a much nicer and more cooperative way. It's what does the party believe, and as an officer of the party, I'll execute campaigning along the basis as agreed by our members in conference. So it's, whilst that's not maybe a satisfactory answer about what I think, it is hopefully an indication of how we go about our thinking and how we go about our policy making this year. There are two policy debates at annual conference which centre in and around connectivity, community connectivity, and also in terms of corporate governance and behaviour of the private sector as well. They're the two selected areas for conference to vote on. How that's selected is it comes from conference one year, it goes to our policy subcommittee, and it comes back through a year-long policy consultation process. So that's how that works. But obviously colleagues like myself, policy officers at the party, would be on hand to talk you through that if you can't find it on the website as well. There's another question come through from Graham. Graham's asking about organising the party sort of thematically. Are there networks? I guess what you're saying, Graham, is are there networks within the party in and around one policy area or a cluster of policy areas? I can see you nodding. So where we're up to there, we do have networks within the party, but they're on underrepresented voices within the party, Graham. So what you'll find in that on that website is a lot of discussion about member-led networks. They're not on policy matters in that way. What we seek to do is what you hopefully will see on the website, Graham, is a journey that if you are particularly interested in campaigning on one particular aspect, what you should start to be able to see is all of the connected content come to you on the website. So whilst it's not the education group of the Co-operative Party getting together once every 2 months, what you should be able to see is a collection of all the Co-op Party thinking in that area, available on the website, available through the policy process I aforementioned. However, what I would say actually is there's no good reason why those networks and informal spaces for people to get together and to speak about only one thing, there's no formal decision not to have those, if you like. There's no, oh, well, actually, no, that's not how we would like to do our business. From time to time, there has been opportunity and space for national staff to try and coalesce around and organise in that way. I'd be up for it, is the top and bottom of it. So if there was a particular one that you'd like to join in on, or to demonstrate an interest within, let us know. Let us know via the mail email address, or indeed email myself. All our details are online, because I'm not against it. As our party grows and as it evolves, we will take on new activity in that way. It's not that, good Lord, there's no way we could possibly ever do such a thing. We'd be up for it. We're a small team of about sort of 13 national members of staff, something along those lines. We're trying to do quite a lot with that, so we would hope that we could have a member-led aspect to that work. But I know that my colleague Anna Burley, who's our policy officer, would be really interested in that work. And what you should see is our annual conference being online this year will give you that opportunity to get together. Annual conference has been an opportunity where people are able to get together to speak about just one thing. And what I hope to see is that will be writ large, if you like, within the online setting of this conference. But Graham, I'm up for it, and there's no reason why we wouldn't. Is the top and bottom. Have we got any hands up that I can't see to bring people in? Mariana, I can see Mariana seeking to come in. Are we able to unmute Mariana?
Hi, thank you. I'm a Labour and cooperative councillor in London Lambeth. One of the things that I'm still perplexed about, obviously, thank you for your introduction in terms of the little bit of potted history, and I understand how we're separate but together in terms of our relationship with the Labour Party. But I do feel that we could be a bit punchier, because my exposure to the co-op has been phenomenal, in terms of being really ahead of the curve in terms of policy ideas. So so many issues that actually have come to the fore because of the COVID pandemic actually were somehow, when you talked about food justice and you've talked about modern day slavery, and there's been issues of, say, digital poverty, these are all themes that I picked up on from the co-op party. So what I'd like to see is more pressure on filtering through those themes into the Labour Party. And as a councillor, I would almost like, I feel a bit, I should know more, because Anna Burley is actually a colleague, but it would be really useful if there was more of a connect. So when there's full council and you have the opportunity to put forward questions, there should almost be a circular from the co-op to say, for elected councillors, these are the issues that we're dealing with, put forward motions, a sort of more of a coordinated effort. And again, if you are a Labour Party member and you're going to branch meetings or CLP meetings, again, there needs to be more of a connect, so that the themes that you have and the policies that you have are fantastic, aren't in silos, and are filtering through to co-op members who are also members of the Labour Party, so we can raise, so when say we go down a rabbit hole and we're so much consumed by factionalism, we can actually step outside of that, because the co-op steps outside of that, and put forward motions that are non-confrontational but are actually at the heart of what we should be doing. So okay. That's my little rant.
No. That's thanks very much. A good range within your rant. Let me try and cover some, if not all. If that's all right, because I think there's a couple of common themes from what I can see coming through in the chat as well. So I may well touch upon some of the other points that you raised, such as, policy response to COVID-19. Where I point people towards is the Owning the Future series of policy work, which, if you haven't seen, is very much online on our website at the minute. It's a wide range of work through that which and I can see David's asking in terms of local business support and business continuation. We've got a fantastic policy in that area, David. I'd encourage you and anyone who's wondering what our response is in a policy sense to COVID to have a look at OWN in the future. In terms of local government, is one of the most important aspects of our work. I mentioned that 1,000 Labour and cooperative councillors. That 1,000 is an irrelevant number if the 1,000 councillors like yourself, Mariana, aren't feeling that you've got everything you need to be an effective cooperative voice within your council. Things I would point yourself towards within that is, if you're not in it already, the cooperative councillor WhatsApp group. Fantastic place for picking up ideas for local council work, best practice work as well. That's a chat group, so there's information coming from all parts of the country, if you like, not just a broadcast group from the centre. Fantastic resource there. If you're not receiving our monthly updates with that sort of motion-based work in it, Mariana, you need to be. So there, if you're not getting those updates, do let us know privately or to colleagues, and we'll make sure that you are plugged into them. They are a regular communication to our councillors with some of the content that you're talking about. But the central point was a little bit more in and around that influence. How do we bring influence across to the Labour Party? And that may be shared with other people's wondering feelings as well. And I think maybe I'll sort of touch upon that for a couple of minutes as well. In that, ultimately, I talked about that relationship, the formality of the relationship, and things like that. But we have a place on the Labour Party's MPF as well, which is the formal aspect of how our policy is inputted to the Labour Party. I think everyone will have different views about the MPF and how that may change into the future, but that's the sort of formal aspect of where that policy work is. But you have to remember that we are lucky enough to be represented right across the line as well. So often our best advocates for our policy work comes from Labour and cooperative elected representatives such as yourself, Mariana, in that we often see our influence being brought to bear through those routes. If you think one of the biggest achievements that we got in the last 2 manifestos in terms of an influence way is double the size of the cooperative sector. Now, I think that demonstrates where our influence can be felt or seen, if you like, in that whilst it's a small part of a wider platform, for ourselves, the co-op movement turns over somewhere like £40 billion each year to the economic value to the economy. Double that is a much larger number, and I think that ambition on behalf of the Labour Party is exactly where we want to exert our influence on. We want to ensure that Labour Party is as cooperative as possible, and that's sometimes done through conversation. It's sometimes done through normal channels, if you like, through the Labour Party, sometimes through the MPF, sometimes through what we now have of 9 Labour and cooperative members of the Shadow Cabinet. People who actively represent us. We've got a fantastic shadow Labour and cooperative chancellor who is being one of the biggest proponents of the cooperative movement over the last number of years within the shadow team before. So our influence is often channeled best through a range of those areas. There's not one place I would say, that's how the Co-op Party has influence. We want to use CLPs much more. We want to ensure that we're using our CLP delegates, where there are still delegate structures, much more. We want to make sure that we're having that influence at the regional exec levels as well, regional board levels of the Labour Party. So it's places where there are Co-op Party representatives, but we think we can do more. I think we do a reasonable job of having the influence over the Labour Party that we have. I think we want more because we're ultimately an ambitious organisation who wants more. We fervently believe in our cooperative ideals and our cooperative values and principles, and therefore why wouldn't we want more? And I think one last bit I'd touch on is something you said about the factionalism, and which is being a feature of maybe the Labour Party for a long period of time, but certainly a feature, an important feature, if you like, over the last number of years. Now, we at the very outset said, look, we stick to our knitting. our purpose is to influence British public policy for the betterment of cooperatives and cooperation, primarily through our and we'll work with anyone who wishes to do that with us. And I think that's a really important place for the Co-op Party to be. It's our historic mission. It's what we were created for, and that's what we stick to. We don't seek to get involved in those other aspects of how to influence can be gained within the labour movement, or how spotlight can be brought upon particular organisations or individuals, because ultimately that's not what we're here for. We're not, and that's why we've done ever so well over the last number, in my view, in a political sense, over the last number of years, is by sticking to our knitting, sticking to what our historic role is. If there's something we need to say in what is important to us and important to our values and principles, absolutely have that independence of mind to say it, to campaign for it, and to believe in it. But don't let us be used one way or the other for other gain. So hopefully that's a little bit about the routes to influence, and a bit about our approach to factionalism as well, which may be of interest to others on the call, and some of the practical aspects of the type of content that we're trying to get across as well. I've got one from Anthony. Anthony is asking for examples of co-op councillors or MPs who have proposed cooperative solutions to policy decisions. Anthony from Barnet, I can see loads is the top and bottom of it, is the truth, and that's a great place. I think today we've got one. Just today, I think, is Tracy Brabin will be out talking about cooperative solutions in the performing arts, which desperately needs saving as a result of COVID-19. I think the government has established a fund for the performing and creative arts, which actively excludes co-ops. So in a really practical sense, from today, Tracy Brabin will be proposing a change to government approach to make sure that the arts co-ops, of which there are many, are supported as much as companies listed with Companies House, or indeed with a charity commission as well. So just in one sense, there's one from today, Anthony. I won't go through what was yesterday and the week before, but what I'm hoping is that we're equipping, more generally, we're equipping our elected representatives right across the piece, whether that in Westminster or indeed elsewhere, to make sure that cooperative solutions are something that they're championing. An area, I'd say, Metro Mes, a newer area. If you look at the Co-op Commission from Andy Burnham, produced in Greater Manchester, fantastic document, obviously huge political buy-in with lots of cooperative solutions, which I think is formally adopted, was formally adopted by the council, the metro area, the joint GMCA, the combined authority, about 6 days ago. So I won't labour the point too much, Anthony, but there's plenty of examples like that knocking around. What I can see from Russell is asking in and around, Russell asking about branches broken into regions. Some directly go with CLPs, some have got that slightly quirky geography, and that's a good question as well, Russell, in that our parties and our party structure goes back to historic, in some ways, trading areas of cooperative societies. So there are some geographic quirks, if you like, often in and around the trading areas of individual cooperative societies like Central England or mid-counties or east of England. We try and be as logical as possible, we try and be as user-friendly as possible, but they don't align to CLPs exactly. They're not far off in many cases, Russell, but there are some geographic quirks, but that also goes back to the way in which some of those cooperative societies join us and affiliate to us as well. So whilst it's generally all right, that's the reason why you may be in a quirky geographic area. If there's something of particular concern to you, Russell, make sure you contact the membership team, and make sure you get in touch with my colleague Shane or Joel or John to sort of maybe point to why that's the case in your area, but that's the historic basis and the why as well. There's been a struggle, Trish is saying, a struggle to get some information out in terms of roles of CLPs in trying to get cooperation more generally to the fore through CLPs. I think you're right, Tricia. I think that we've got nearly 1,000 more, in fact, CLP delegates within the Co-op Party. Many CLPs will have up to 5 or 6 CLP cooperative delegates within that structure. I think we can do much more in that area. I said it massively. Said it before. Your question, it's not something which has just hit me. I think this is something the party is focused on. I think I'd like to see much more within local CLPs than where we currently are. I think we do well in some areas and much less well elsewhere. I think it's a real opportunity for the party. I think it will also chime with what the Labour Party itself seeks to do. I think the Labour Party sees an opportunity to reinvigorate, restart, energise CLPs in around a campaign and theme or in and around community building. And I think that will play to ourselves in the co-op movement. I think we've got a really important role to play there. So I think you're right. And in terms of what we're going to do about it, what we're doing, Tricia, is we're taking on a number of regional organisers of the party. Should start end of the year. The regional organisers, one of their important tasks, working with the local parties, but also ensuring that we start to get better value from our CLP delegates and work closer with CLPs more generally. So we're investing staff time into that area because we think it's one which needs it. In terms of other questions, is anyone else indicating? I can see that our host is changed, but Emma, have we got other people indicating on the call before I go back to the chat? If so, do feel free to go to unmute colleagues.
Philip Watson.
Yep, come on through. Hello. It sounds like we might have lost a colleague, I'm afraid, who was just about to come in.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Joe. Good afternoon. It's Phil Watson. I'm speaking from Barnsley.
Oh, okay.
I'll only be very brief in my question. It's mainly aimed at our Labour and Cooperative councillors.
Right.
As you probably know, the Colne Valley have established a care cooperative around the Kirklees local authority area.
Yeah.
Could I recommend that our Labour and Cooperative councillors, and indeed our Metro mayors, give serious consideration to care cooperatives? Thank you.
Okay, cheers. Thanks, Phil. It does point towards the wealth of different types of cooperatives across the UK. Phil's quite right in highlighting a new one in his area. Care co-ops will be something of increased importance as we go forward as a result of the last 16 to 17 weeks that we've all experienced. I can see a huge role for care co-ops, and indeed there's a huge amount of social enterprise in that area as well. We've published on that area called Taking Care. So if you are interested in the establishment of care co-ops, I know that there are proposed ones across the country. Ealing is an area to look for, as Phil says, Calderdale as well. But there is a policy document called Taking Care, which you'll find on the website as well. So there's a range of areas. If that is something that you are of important interest, that's a good place to go for it. Look, I've got one new more. I've extended my time for this one. I'm very sorry, colleagues. We've got Janice asking questions in terms of the accessibility of these sessions. I think that's an important one to touch upon as well, Janice. I think what I would say is that it has increased what our move to online through the period of time has increased the ability of people to get involved in our work for a range of reasons, whether that be geographic or indeed where they're up to in terms of work and family commitments and other aspects. We have seen an increase and a greater access to the work of the Co-op Party. It's not perfect, Janice, and I think you're absolutely right in terms of transcription and other aspects. We're trying to work increasingly, as you'll know, with our our disability forum, making sure that the party's output is accessible, whether that's a lot of our video content as well. We've been talking this morning about making sure that our annual conference, which will be online the second week of October, making sure that that has the appropriate accessibility measures being taken on it as well. And that's something which will go through into our cooperation live as well. So whilst we know that it's improving, we know that it's not a finished job, Janice, and I know that I think I met with yourself and others within the forum 2 or 3 weeks ago where we got through, we got onto those topics as well. So it's something we're improving, and something we'll continue to focus on. So hopefully, if there are other particular aspects of that, Janice, either drop me a line or drop our colleagues, communications colleagues, a line as well, Georgia and Robin as well. And look, I've run over hugely. I've tried to cover some of the aspects of influence and factionalism, how our party works, where it's come from, what we're seeking to achieve. Through this period over the next 4 or 5 Cooperation Live, there will be opportunity to look at those in much more detail, especially our work with CLPs. I know as a feature, I know that local government will have its own feature session in this way. So whilst I've picked up on some of the themes, I think ultimately there will be much more to come. I'm intending to finish the session here. I can see that I've run dry within the chat forum. I think I've covered most of what I've had come through. If there are things I've missed, make sure that they're flagged up to us following the session, flagged up to myself, and I'll get a written answer to you. But for now, that's a little bit about the summer school and the cooperative party. Thanks for making some time, and we'll speak again soon. All right, see you now. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.